24,100 Malaysians lost their job in the first 3 months of 2026 alone. That is up 47% compared to last year. That's a huge number. And if you live in KL or Selangor, then more than half of these retrenchments happened right where we live. And the news isn't slowing down. In early April, the government announced that another 4,700 plus people have also lost their job. So I'm not trying to scare you guys with these things, but it can happen at any time to anyone. I've seen these things happen right in front of my eyes at the companies that I used to work at. So in this video, I'll talk about what I would do if I were to get laid off from my job. I would cover the financial moves as well as the non-financial moves because there are a few things that you should be doing. But even if you guys aren't impacted by layoffs yet, then it will still be helpful for you because you'll be prepared. So let's get to it. Quick context, I used to work in Grab back in 2023. I tendered my resignation, I think around May or June. And then coincidentally at the time as well, Grab ran one of their largest layoffs in the company's history. I tendered my resignation right before this announcement was made. And I remember still that Bloomberg leaked the news, so Grab had to, announce it earlier than they wanted to. But the funny thing is, if I actually got laid off instead of resigning from my job, I would have gotten a better package actually. But I saw and knew the people who were impacted by this, and the honest truth is it's really tough to face. And it could happen to anyone at any time, like I said. These days, there are two main catalysts for this happening. Number one is, the war causing economic instability, a lot of uncertainty all around the world. And then number two, of course, is the pace of AI development and adoption, right? In the US, we've seen a lot of job losses to AI already. In their last earnings call, Meta announced that they would reduce their headcount by 8,000 people because of AI adoption. And that's just Meta. There's a lot of other companies who have already done this in the past, and I fear that this could be a trend that persists moving forward. So the first thing that you want to do is to claim your SOCSO. This is a program by Perkeso. It is mandatory for all full-time employees in Malaysia. Every single month, you pay a small amount of money to the government for this, to Perkeso for this, and then your employer makes a contribution as well. This should be non-negotiable. This is actually the first thing that you should do right out of the gate. And if you guys still have a job right now, just check your salary slips. You should see the deduction. If you don't, then maybe ask HR why you're not enrolled into SOCSO, because it is very, very helpful. So the hard rule and the very important thing for you to know is that you have to file this claim within 60 days of losing your job. If you wait too long, you will not be eligible for the benefits anymore, no matter how long you've contributed. So don't wait, do it as soon as you can. So what you're going to get is you're going to get 3 to 6 months worth of monthly payments that they're going to try and match towards your salary. So the amount will stagger depending on how long you get onto this for. I think it's between 30 to 80%. One thing that you have to know though is that I think their cap for salary is 3,950 ringgit. So even if you're earning 15,000 ringgit, you're not going to get 80% of 15,000 ringgit because then they'll go broke, right? You're going to get 80% of 3,950 ringgit. So you won't be able to cover your entire salary, but at least it's still money, right? You should still grab it while it's there. And then they have this other thing called the early re-employment allowance, which is really cool. I didn't know about it as well. But basically, if you manage to find a new job before that 3 to 6 month period runs out, the Perkeso will actually pay you 25% of whatever is left remaining that they haven't paid you out yet as a lump sum payment. So they're basically incentivizing, encouraging, rewarding you for finding a job early. Again, this is kind of like free money, right? We're paying for this insurance in a way, might as well claim it. So to claim this, just go to their website. Like I said, do it within the first 60 days. Honestly, if you get laid off, do it within the first 1 week even. Don't wait, don't miss out. This is money that we're actually paying. This is not like a handout by the government. We are contributing to this every single month. Now, let's talk about how you're going to have money to survive. Let's say you were to have some savings, you have some investments. Where do we start? The first thing is, this is going to sound obvious. The first thing is you should look at your expenses and cut down as much as you can. Your subscriptions to Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, HBO, all these things you obviously need to cut down on, at least a bit. Food delivery, eating out, anything that's expensive, anything that you think is a bit unnecessary, those things should go first. And if you don't have huge commitments like a car loan, a house loan, any loan in fact, then that's going to be fantastic. If you do have huge commitments, then unfortunately you might even need to consider getting rid of those commitments down the line if it gets to that stage. So for example, if you have a house, let's say that you're currently renting out, or you own and you're just sitting there idly, then you might need to consider selling it off, maybe even taking a small loss just to get that negative cash flow out of the way. Then, if you actually need money, then my order priority is to first look at things with fixed investment values. So things like ASB, fixed deposits, money market funds, even EPF account 3, these are all really good options for you to sort of tap that savings and use it for your day-to-day expenses when you need it. I know, with EPF account flexible with account 3, it feels bad, right? Taking away money from your retirement, but honestly, this is the entire purpose of having this in the first place. When times are tough, yes, your retirement, your long-term portfolio is important. Yes, you are taking away from the effects of compounding, but if you need the money, you need the money. So just do it. Later on, down the road, once you've gotten stable again, once you've gotten a job again, you can always redeposit. And then let's talk about stocks. So generally, I would say you don't really want to liquidate your stock portfolio just because it's volatile. It can go up, it can go down, anything can happen. So you don't really want to cash out unless you really have to. One caveat that I would say is that if you're sitting on a huge gain already on your stocks, or let's say stocks are at all-time highs like they are right now, then yes, you could consider locking in some profits and cashing that out. Maybe move it to ASB, de-risk a bit so that the volatility of the market won't impact your net worth. Take out that money, put it into ASB. When you need it, you withdraw it back out. And another thing is, of course, if you have consistent investments from the past, let's say you have monthly DCAs, monthly deposits into your investment accounts, first of all, fantastic, but for now, just put it on pause. It is fantastic for you to invest consistently every single month, but when your cash flow is like this, when you're not getting any income at all, then your priority is just surviving, right? You don't want to invest money, which very soon you will need again. I would go as far as to say, don't invest any new money into volatile assets, especially things like stocks and crypto, because you don't want to put your, entire net worth into the stock market or crypto thinking it's fine, and then 3-6 months down the line, you realize you still can't find a job and you need to sell it. But if stocks were to go into a bear market, if you were to drop 20-30%, then you go from a bad position to an even worse one. Don't try to be a hero. You're trying to trade your way out of this situation by investing into things like stocks or crypto. It is not worth it. Play it safe for now. And then the third thing that I would do is that I would try my very best not to fall into the debt trap. I think it's very easy as you lose your job, as you lose your source of income, to lean on things like loans, buy now, pay later, stuff like that. But it is not the right move. And the reason for this is interest rates. Credit cards, right? If you miss your payment, banks will charge you 18% interest per year. Buy now, pay later, similar, they call it interest maybe, but they are admin or management fees. As soon as you miss a payment, it will really start to rack up. And this is where you're most vulnerable, Once you rack up these loans, you take more and more loans, and then you don't have cash flow to pay it off, it will slowly compound, and before you know it, you owe a huge amount of money. The opposite is actually the right move. Cut expenses as fast as you can. Any high interest rate loans, you want to pay it off as soon as possible. If you're paying 18% interest per annum, there's literally nothing else you could do that would earn you more money, so to say, than to pay that off as fast as you can. So cut down your expenses, channel all of your cash flow, whatever you have left, towards clearing that off. If I was in this position, I would really prefer to liquidate my stock positions, liquidate my crypto positions, withdraw that cash than to take a loan. Trust me, in this position, yes, maybe it feels bad selling your investments, but it's even worse getting into debt that you cannot pay off, that can easily spiral, and maybe eventually you'll be forced to sell your investments anyway. So better to do it early than to rely on loans. And I know that at the end of the day, sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to take a loan to survive, otherwise you really have no money at all. If you were to go this route, I guess it's fine if you were forced to, but make sure you only do this once you've exhausted every other option out there. You have cut down all your expenses, you have minimized your lifestyle so that you can take as little of a loan as possible. And then finally, you need to know and understand how long you have to survive. If you guys haven't lost your job yet, then this is the time for you to build your runway. And I say this all the time, but this is exactly why emergency funds are so important. It's to help us out, to make sure that we're not stressed when we face emergencies like losing a job unexpectedly. The problem is, most Malaysians don't have an emergency fund, so if this is you and you still have a job right now, then put in all your effort towards building it. At minimum, I would say go for 3 months worth of your expenses. If you're someone who thinks your job is at higher risk, Or if you're someone who has a higher salary and you don't think it's easy for you to find a job if you were to get let go, then you should have a bigger emergency fund. My honest opinion is that the higher your salary, the more at risk you are. I know it's not easy to build this emergency fund, trying to save 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses, with rising cost of living and all that. But trust me, you have to do it, because once you lose your job, then you don't have the option to build it anymore. It's too late. But if you're at completely zero right now and 6 months worth of your expenses feels too far away that you feel demotivated, then don't worry, your first target should be something like 5,000 or 10,000 ringgit. Yes, it won't be enough for you to survive for 6 months, but at least you have something and you don't feel stressed out if bad things were to happen to you, right? If you lost your job and you had 10,000 ringgit in your bank account compared to zero, it would feel a lot better to have 10,000 ringgit. So start saving if you guys still have a job and you don't have your emergency fund set up yet. Now, let's talk about everything else that's not financially related. And the first thing that you should do is to tell your network early. I think it's common for people, whether it's shame or ego, whatever it is, to not want to tell everyone yet that you can retrench. You think, maybe I'll just figure it out on my own. The thing is, especially if you're at a middle or senior level position, most of these jobs, they get filled through referrals, right? They get filled through people telling the hiring manager that this guy might be the right fit, rather than them posting it on job boards and then you applying for it. Also, you should start applying for jobs quickly. I know it can feel tempting to treat this as sort of a mini retirement and then maybe you get back on later. Actually, if you have a lot of money saved up, then by all means, go for it. But if you don't have a lot of money saved up, then you should apply for jobs as quickly as you can. What I noticed from my time in Grab was that when they were doing the layoffs, a lot of companies were posting on LinkedIn trying to help the affected employees and saying, hey, if you guys were impacted by the layoffs by Grab, reach out to us. These are the positions that we have. But the thing is, these things, they don't last forever. These roles will fill quick, and in a way, you're kind of competing with your ex-colleagues who are also looking for the same positions, right? And this is why you need to do it early. And on this note, something else you guys should consider is going back to your old job. I know some people might find it shameful, some people might find it, I don't want to go back to my ex-boss and tell him the situation and how I want a job again. It feels like I'm boomeranging and stuff like that. But I know people who did exactly this after they got laid off and they got taken back. It's a much easier route just because you understand that job, you understand the industry, your ex-boss knows how capable you are. So it is sort of, in a way, the easiest way for you to get straight back into a job. So yes, if there's an old job that you're willing to get back to, let's say it's not terrible for you mentally or anything like that, then just try asking. The worst case scenario is they tell you no, they're not going to take you back. So what? At least you tried. And even if they were to offer you a job but with a lower salary, I know sometimes companies take advantage of this. They say, I know you're desperate right now, so I'll pay you 60% of your old salary. Just take it. At least you have some positive cash flow coming in while you try and figure things out. Now, the next thing that I'll be looking to do is to spend my free time well. So when you lose your job, or even for me, I didn't really lose my job, but when I quit my job, suddenly you feel like you have a lot of free time, and we have to spend this wisely, not just for your financial recovery, but also so you stay mentally sane. So there are two paths for this. One is you can try and upskill. The other one is you can sort of try and bridge your income by doing other work. So let's talk about upskilling first. You can either stay in the same role that you're in, stay in the same vertical, but try to get more certifications, try to get better at it. And then the other option is for you to explore a completely different role. So let's say you're working in marketing and you've always wanted to try software development. Now you have time. Try and upskill yourself, try to learn and see whether you can find junior or entry-level jobs. What I would focus on is definitely things that are in demand. I know that people have their passions and things that they like, but the truth is, especially if you're tight financially, then you have to find skills that companies are looking for. And from my experience at least, no matter how bad the situation is, there will always be roles that are in demand. So back then, with Grab, they were at least nice where they were helping the employees that were affected upskill themselves. They were giving them, I can't remember what it was, like credits to learn stuff and try and upskill stuff. So yeah, look out for these things from your company as well. And the second part is trying to bridge your income with other work. So you can do things like, let's say, tutoring. You can try to teach a language. You can freelance. Anything that you have a skill, there's probably a market out there. Let's say in your previous job that you got laid off from, you were a creative designer, you were a graphic designer, whatever it is, you can definitely find a market out there where people want your services. So doing this not only helps you sort of build an income, it also helps you stay productive. It helps you feel like, hey, I'm doing something with my life. And who knows, Sometimes these things become your long-term thing. Maybe you never go back to corporate. Maybe this, you realize you can actually make it work long-term. And then the final thing I would do if I were to get laid off is I would try and keep a routine. So you need to wake up early, you need to go to the gym, you need to meet your friends, you need to leave the house. Don't get stuck in a rut. Try to keep things as normal as possible. There is a temptation, to feel like I have to keep applying for jobs as much as possible until I can secure a job again. The thing is, if you apply for 50 jobs a day, right? Eventually, you will run out of jobs to apply for. You will maybe spend less time applying for each job and putting less effort and attention into it, which means it's less likely for you to get that job. And then you'll get burnt out, right? How long can you just keep applying for jobs every single day? So have a schedule. Of course, set some time aside, maybe 1 to 2 hours a day, applying for jobs, really looking at the job description, tailoring your CV, tailoring your cover letter, all those things. But also set time to do everything else. I've known people who, after losing a job or after quitting a job, they decided to do nothing. They just stayed at home, played games all day, every day. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with blowing off some steam because this is a very stressful period. But if you're not careful and you let this go on for too long, it's easy for you to get into a rut, which is very difficult to get out of. So that's what I would do if I were to get laid off. It seems to be happening a lot these days, starting in the US and now Malaysia as well. Our minister did say that Q2 was crucial for us to know whether this is just a one-off increase in layoffs or if this is going to be something that's going to, sort of sustain moving forward. Anyway, if you guys have been laid off before and if you've gotten out of it successfully, let me know in the comments below what was the most important thing that you did. Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. I hope it was helpful to you. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.